Welcome, brothers and sisters of the light. With these new hero talents, Blizz is really heating up the Paladin play. Spots, dots, and hots are all incoming, and it looks pretty sweet. Tell you what, all this talk about flames gets me stirred up. Reminds me of when we used to ride out with passion in our hearts and hunt down those puke-covered undead and burn them to the ground. Good old days indeed. But the heat is returning with the Herald of the Sun hero talents. Prepare yourself, family. Paladins are going solar. We'll start at the top, work our way down the middle, and then we'll hit the flanks. The Herald of the Sun talents introduce this new ability, I guess is what we'll call it, called Sunspots. I gotta tell you right away, I'm not a big fan of the term sunspot. Is that just me? I mean, if you tell me I've got a sunspot, I'm headed to the dermatologist. But we're gonna be passing these out, apparently, to friends and foe alike. So what is a sunspot? Well, depending on who you put it on, it's either a hot or a dot. And you activate these applications by using a certain ability. So for Holy Paladins, the greatest of these, it's Holy Prism. You remember Holy Prism. It's this ability right here in your talent tree. Now, I'm guessing that we're getting this baseline because it would be really awkward not to have it if you had the hero talents and not the ability. So I'm guessing they're throwing this in baseline. Kind of sad for Light's Hammer to get bumped, but we'll see what happens. So Holy Prism, you'll remember you can shoot it at an ally and hit them, and it's going to heal them and do damage to the enemies around them. Or you can shoot it into an enemy, it'll damage them and heal up to 5 people around them. So pretty cool ability on a very short 20-second cooldown. Once you hit that Holy Prism, you're going to get this buff, or you're going to activate the ability where your next 2 holy power spending abilities. When we talk spenders, we're talking Word of Glory, Light of Dawn, and Shield of the Righteous. So the next 2 times you use one of those abilities, you're going to create a sunspot on your target, which is going to create an 8-second dot or hot, depending on the target, ally or foe. For Retribution right here, instead of Holy Prism, it's Wake of Ashes. So every 20 seconds, you're going to be able to hit your Holy Prism, and then the next 2 Holy Power spenders are going to apply this Sunspot. And then on top of that, right here, 10% of the damage or healing radiates to nearby foes or allies, again, depending on who you put it on. So we apply hots or dots on our next 2 spenders after using Holy Prism. 20-second cooldown. Love the ability, not a big fan of the name, but it is what it is. Next up, Eternal Flame, making a comeback. Remember Eternal Flame? Every time you cast it on someone and it would tick, they'd get that little flame effect. So it's making a big comeback, and it's going to replace your Word of Glory. And it adds an extra effect. So when you heal an ally, it gives them immediate heal, but then they also get a hot over 20 seconds. And it's increased by 25% when cast on self. One of the complaints about Word of Glory has always been about how boring it is, right? You build up your 3 holy power, you target some awesome stud, and then you cast it and boom. You just get a simple heal. It's not even a crazy powerful heal. And while it's effective, I think people were always hoping that you'd get a little more out of it. Well, here comes Eternal Flame to do just that. You toss that heal, they get the immediate heal, and now they get a heal over time. Here's a choice node that you run into between Eternal Sun and Lingering Radiance. On the top, Eternal Sun, going to increase the duration of both Sunspot and Eternal Flame. Little longer hot or dot, little longer hot from Eternal Flame. And then Lingering Radiance when the sunspot expires, and you'll remember they last for 8 seconds, unless, of course, you get the time extension here, which would bump it up to 10. And remember, all this is subject to change, and some of this is going to be changed. I can promise you that. But for now, we'll just go with what we've got. But here with Lingering Radiance, when sunspots expire, you're going to leave an eternal flame, so one of these Wog heals, on your ally, or Greater Judgment if you put it on an enemy. Greater Judgment's the ability that prevents the next 30k damage that the target deals. So you activate your Holy Prism, you put your Sunspot hot or dot out, it goes away, and then they're going to receive one of these extra buffs. Really empowers those Sunspots. Very cool. Solar Grace, a haste buff every time you apply Sunspot. Sounds like it can stack. More haste, lower cooldowns. Gets that Holy Prism cooldown as well, so then you can apply more Sunspots. All right. Sun's Avatar. This one's kind of crazy. So we'll go with the bottom half first so it'll make more sense, I think. So when you activate Avenging Wrath, you're going to put out 4 Sunspots. I imagine if you're in Holy, it's going to be on allies, and if you're in Retribution, it's going to be enemies, is what I'm assuming. But I don't know. Maybe it just randomly picks. Hopefully not, but we'll see. So you're going to throw 4 Sunspots out on your teammates here, and they're increased by 20%. On top of that, you become linked to them. So it's like a tethering ability, I guess. And it causes radiant damage to enemies or healing to allies that pass through the beams. So from a Holy Paladin perspective, activate those wings, throw out your Sunspots. Some beams are going to go from you to those players, and the enemies inside those beams are going to take damage during your Avenging Wrath. So you know when I say I'm going hot? Well, this is the definition of going hot. Healing and damage going everywhere. Really going to add to that Avenging Wrath cooldown. It'll be interesting to see what the animations look like, but sounds like it's going to be very powerful. Over here on the left side, we got a choice node right away. Morningstar versus Gleaming Rays. Morningstar sounds pretty cool. It's one of those stacking buffs to your sunspots. So every 5 seconds, your next sunspot damage or healing is increased, stacking up to 10 times. And then when you're out of combat, it stacks up twice as fast. So you're going to come in, cast your Holy Prism, and your first sunspot's going to do 50% extra healing or damage. And then when you're out of combat, it's going to stack up fast so you can do it again. This is really going to be fun because it's going to have some cool implications. You throw a Consecrate on top of that. I mean, that's some nice AoE damage. Sounds like. And then this just stack it back up. You could save it for when you really wanted to burn down a pack or something. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I like this interaction, and it's even better because it's a passive, right? You get these abilities that kind of come in without having to add more button bloat. So to me, Morningstar sounds freaking sweet. Gleaming Rays, 10% increase on Holy Power spenders if you've got a Sunspot out. Not as exciting as Morningstar, but a nice little buff. Coming down, another choice node, and this time we're getting some CC. So on top, Illumine, sunspots reduce movement speed by 50% or increase movement speed of allies by 20%. That's awesome. On top of having freedom, are you kidding me? I'm going to be throwing this out on everybody. I mean, how much are you warriors and demon hunters, and everybody's going to be loving those Paladin heals now. I mean, how awesome is this going to be in random battlegrounds? Everybody's on your flag carrier in Warsong Gulch. You throw out that Holy Prism, and then you throw an Eternal Flame, which is a spender, right? So that's going to put a sunspot on your flag carrier. They're moving at 20% faster speed. After you get them moving faster, you could throw out a Shield of the Righteous, put sunspots out on the people trying to hit them, and cut their speed in half. That is crazy powerful. I'm assuming that, of course, this is going to get drastically reduced in PvP. And I will say, I do think there's already too many micro CCs, and this is another one of those. There's just so many slows and shit in the game now that just apply passively like this. And so I'm happy to have one, but I could see where it might be getting a little out of control. But if everybody else gets one, I might as well get one too, right? And the ability to increase ally speed is just great. I mean, that's just going to be, again, great for getting around town, great in battlegrounds, great in Mythic Plus, raid mechanics. I mean, there's just a ton of ways that getting a little speed boost or reducing the speed of enemies can be very helpful. Then we also down here have Will of the Dawn, where you just get this passive 5% if you're above 80% health. 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but you stack on some speed enchants and stuff. Probably pretty nice. But then it's got this extra effect where if you get dropped below 35%, you get a burst of speed for 5 seconds. So that also has some pretty cool PvP implications in Arena, right? Got some guy trucking you. He procs this and you can get around a pillar, get away from him, but cannot occur more than once every 50 seconds. These are both great. And we'll be checking those out for sure. Down here, Aurora. This one seems boring, but it's actually pretty nice feedback because what it does is it gives you that divine purpose proc when you cast Holy Prism. Remember, divine purpose gives you a free holy power ability and increases its damage and healing by 15%, which I'm assuming would apply to Eternal Flame if it replaces Word of Glory. So you're going to hit your Holy Prism, and then it's going to give you one of those divine purpose procs, and that's going to give you a free spender right away, which is going to allow you to apply those sunspots right away. So you hit that prism, you get that proc, and now you can use a spender right away to get those sunspots rolling. That's going to create a really smooth flow to the spec, I think. Starting up here on the right, we have a passive Luminosity. For Holy, 10% increase crit on Holy Shock and Light of Dawn, Hammer of Wrath, and Divine Storm for Retribution. Stacking that 10% on top of this 8% you get, that's going to be 18% crit strike on Holy Shock. And that Light of Dawn that you're throwing out in those raids, getting a 10% increased is really nice. And it's even better when you consider the next passive coming down here, Sear, where your Holy Shocks and Light of Dawn critical strikes cause a target to burn over 4 seconds or be healed over 4 seconds. So for all of you who love the power of the Shockaden, it's coming back right here. You start pumping Holy Shocks into people and they crit, it's going to add some burn over time effects or heal over time effects. This is awesome. We've always used Holy Shock crits to proc Infusion of Light procs to soup up a Flash of Light or a Holy Light. And now they kind of stand on their own. Those Holy Shock crits are not only going to do more healing, but they're going to cause this hotter dot depending on what you pump them into. And it's going to make them a lot of fun to send out. And then when you're running around as Retribution, Hammer of Wrath, and Divine Storm. So you get those big AoE crit Divine Storms, and then you also get that radiant damage. So more crit chance on the abilities that put these hot and dots up. And reminds me of those Shockaden days. And those of you who love that Shockaden play, well, we're coming back, baby. And we're still riding the fun train on this. Look at here. Second Sunrise. Holy Shock and Light of Dawn. 15% chance to cast again at 30% effectiveness. So you hit someone, it crits, puts that burn on them, and then it could also proc again at 30% effectiveness. Now it's only a 15% chance, but you hit Holy Shock an awful lot. I know I do. And you get 2 charges of it. I mean, boy, this is pretty nice. And again, that's going to be 15% chance to cast again. That could be a heal that you really need. It could be more damage, top someone off. Crazy cool. And then here we go for Retribution. Same thing, Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm. So this whole right side, Holy Shock and Light of Dawn, just get these great passes. We start up here, we get more crit chance on both of them. Down here, when it does crit, it applies a hotter dot to the target. And then down here at Second Sunrise, both of those abilities have a chance to proc again at 30% effectiveness. This whole right side is just going to be some awesome Shockaden play for those of us that loved it and love to kick ass on our Holy Paladin like we do. This is just, these are incredible. I think this is very well thought out, very thematic, very cool. So much. This is going to be so much fun. Just running around, tearing shit up on that holy pally. So, closing thoughts here on this tree. You remember what I said about Herald of the Sun? This sun worship shit is already screwing with my immersion. So, I'm definitely going to have to be stuck being a lightsmith. Although, ironically, this one will probably be the best talents. And so, I'm going to have to be a Herald of the Sun. And was I not correct? But to be honest with you, I'm loving this talent tree way more than the Lightsmith one, and I'm super excited to check these out. I'm loving the spice added to the shocks, and we're going to be bringing the heat. So, what are my closing thoughts on the Herald of the Sun talents? The heat is on, baby. It's on the street. The heat is on. Oklahoma out.